Welcome everyone. I'm Megan and I am here today to teach you about air dry clay. So today is an air dry clay day and this is kind of a clay class for beginners. What's nice about air dry clay is that you do not have to have expensive equipment like a wheel or like a kiln or something like that. So air dry clay is a great place to just literally get your hands dirty, get into it, and really just enjoy some time with some clay. So we're going to be doing some different things, but the most important thing you're going to need is a package of air dry clay. These usually come in a kilogram, which is about 2.2 pounds of clay, more than enough for you and a friend to play clay all day. So you can have a really good time with that amount of clay. If you love it, you can get it in a couple of other different colors, but usually white is the type of clay that we'll be using. Once it's dry, it takes about 24 hours for it to completely dry, but once it's dry, you can actually paint over top of it too. But I don't recommend painting on it until it's fully dry. So that's something to keep in mind too. So we're so glad that you're here. I'm going to switch over to my other camera and I'm going to show you some of the materials I'll be using. So of course I have this package of air dry clay. It's Craft Smart. This is a professional grade, artist grade kind of clay. There are kids air dry clays also that already come in different little colors. Perfect for kids, but this one's going to be a little tougher and a little better quality for us to use for something more professional and artsy. We're also definitely going to want some parchment paper. So you'll see that I already have some parchment paper laid down over top of my surface, just because I don't want it to mess up the surface underneath here. And also it does have some moisture in it. It's going to be doing some different things that you want this parchment paper, and you also want to be able to peel it back off of the parchment paper. So that's important too. And then we were going to do some impressions. So I suggested getting some stamps, maybe with some little alphabet letters. If you also have access to any kind of like little cookie cutters, these are great for air dry clay also. And then just to kind of show you some things that we can do, I made this the other day and I am in love with it. It's a little baby onesie. And I have a little initial on here that I imprint it with these stamps. And then I was able to put two holes in here. And once it's completely dry, I can put some fabric or put some ribbon through here in order to make a sweet little ornament. So maybe if you know someone who's having a baby this year and you want to have a cute little ornament or just something to put on top of the gift at a shower, I think that this would be absolutely adorable to do. Another idea I was kind of playing around with is here's another heart shape using one of my heart shape cookie cutters. And I did an impression with some leaves. So I had some fake flowers that I was able to push into this clay to leave those cool impressions. And then when I'm thinking about this one, I put a couple of extra holes in it because I'm actually thinking maybe this one will be like a hanging family tree. So if you can picture, maybe these are the initials of the parents, and then maybe you can attach different sections down to create kind of like a wind chime or a mobile or something like that, that I think would be a really cool way to do like a visual family tree. So that's another idea for you. And of course, you can turn these different things into things like trinket trays too. You can put a name on it. You can kind of push up the side so that you can put little rings, some coins, some different things like that into a dish. And we're going to talk about textures. We're going to talk about lots of different things that you can do. You can make coasters, you can make jewelry, you can make earrings, you can make all sorts of things with this air dry clay. So I'm curious in the chat if any of you want to let me know if you've ever done anything with air dry clay before, or are you brand new to this? So one of the most important things about air dry clay is that because it's air dry, if you leave it in the air, it will dry. So we need to be careful with that, which means I'm going to be keeping it wrapped up in different ways. This is also a set of clay tools that I put into the shopping list for today also. And so these clay tools are cool because it has a rolling pin. It also has a couple of these different scoring tools. A lot of people in the chat have never used this before, so this is awesome. I'm really glad that you're here with us. There's some different edges that you can do some cuts with, that you can make slices and slabs. There's also some spatula ends, so you can kind of scrape it up and get it into the places that you need it to be. And I tend to use this tool quite a bit with this pointy end here in order for me to have like put holes into something so that I can turn them into ornaments, or I can add ribbon, or I can attach jewelry findings and things like that to it too. So I see someone in the chat asking about a paint palette for your watercolors. I love that idea. The water and the watercolors in a normal air dry clay, once you have it set, I wouldn't put watercolor into this directly because the water is going to start getting into the clay and it is going to start reactivating the air dry clay. So one thing that I suggest, I think that's a cool idea to make your own little palette, but then I think I would recommend sealing it with something that's definitely waterproof, so that once this is completely dried for 24 hours and you seal it with some spray or with some varnish, then you'll be able to use it as an actual palette. I love that idea. That's a great idea. So I'm so happy to see so many newbies. Thank you for coming. And this last piece in our clay tool set is a nice razor blade that has a really sharp edge. So most of the time, cutting with something plastic is just fine, and that's not a big deal. But if you need to do a little bit more precise cutting, or if you need to cut through some slabs, this razor blade is nice to have too. So this is a great tool set to get you started with air dry clay. And this same tool set, honestly, is so helpful if you ever decide to go into polymer jewelry. So polymer clay is very different from air dry clay because polymer clay that we use for jewelry needs to be cured in an oven. So it's like an oven baked kind of clay, whereas this clay cures just by being in contact with the air. So I'm going to rip off a chunk of this. I'm probably using about a third. I've already used about a third to make some of the other creations I was already showing you. And now I'm going to kind of rip off another third to play with. And when you're packing and storing the rest of your air dry clay, let the materials that they packed it in do some of its job to try and keep some of that moisture in. And then I'm going to keep it for now while I'm working in a Ziploc bag. And then I'm going to put this Ziploc bag into a little storage container just to keep it from drying out. I'm trying to release some of that extra air because I don't want the air to dry out my clay. And then I have like just, you know, one of those little lunch container plastic storage things that I'm going to keep this in also. Feel free to, with this extra clump, if you want to just work with a little bit at a time, you can take some plastic wrap and you can kind of plastic wrap off to the side on your desk too when you're working. So some people are asking a little bit about polymer clay. So I'll tell you about that as I start to work and condition my clay. Now, if you think you're not going to get clay on your hands, you're wrong. You will definitely get clay on your hands today. So that is why I'm working with parchment paper. And I just know that this is going to happen. This is what it looks like. Very easy to wash off. It does dry up your hands, so I tend to use a lot of lotion afterwards because it's taking any bit of moisture and any bit of oil that I have on my hands and it's soaking it up because it's just trying to remain, it's trying to keep itself from drying is what it's trying to do. So I'm going to be conditioning the clay just by really working with it in my hands. You can absolutely wear gloves if you do not like this texture or this feel on your hands, absolutely. And if you have dirty hands, you're going to get dirt onto your clay. So you do want to make sure that you're starting with clean hands. But some of the questions in the chat while I'm conditioning this and just kneading this are talking about why people use polymer clay as opposed to air dry clay. So polymer clay is great for jewelry because it comes in so many different colors. So air dry clay a lot of times just comes in a white. And so you can't make super colorful jewelry because you have to wait for it to dry 24 hours before you start painting it. And then you also have to have the right paints and the right skill set to be able to kind of paint something that looks beautiful. Whereas polymer clay comes in all the different colors. And so you can kind of swirl those colors together or layer them on top of each other and do some really cool things. Another thing is that because air dry clay dries in the air isn't always consistent. The temperature in a room might change. If you have it outside, the temperature might change throughout the day. So it might not all dry at the same pace over the course of that 24 hours. And so that might give you some cracking. So air dry clay does tend to crack. That is what it's kind of known for. So it's for beginners. A lot of times once people learn how to use air dry clay, they move on to a more modeling kind of clay. But then that modeling clay might need to be cured either in a kiln, which is like a fire oven, or like I said, the polymer clay goes into the oven. So the polymer clay only takes 15 minutes in the oven and then it's done and you can move on. Whereas again, the air dry clay takes 24 hours. So those are some of the pros and cons of air dry clay versus other kinds of clay. But I'm going to take one of my tools, which is like a rolling pin, and I am going to start rolling it out. I'm just going to give it a couple of good rolls, and then I'm going to flip the clay over and give it a couple of good rolls and keep flipping it and keep working with it. And we're going to get to different thicknesses. Now, if you want to be super careful about this, there are thickness guides that you can also purchase. So for example, these are 4.5 millimeter guides. So what they do is they stop my rolling pin from going any further down than the 4.5 inches. So that guarantees that if I hit those bars, that my slab is exactly 4.5 millimeters. So if you really care about your precision and you really want everything to be even, then you want to work with those. You can also make your own if you don't have the opportunity to buy them yet. And you can use just craft sticks or just something that you want to match both sides. And then the trick is you want your rolling pin to be able to kind of hit those to be able to know if you've reached that thickness or not. So you'll notice that I keep moving my slab around, and you'll notice that my parchment paper is already kind of absorbing some of the different water or oils or moisture from the slab. And you might also notice when I was rolling, I saw kind of an air pocket. I'll see if I can see one again. So air pockets can happen. And so you do want to kind of look out for those. And if I have an air pocket, I'm honestly going to kind of roll this back up and keep and start again. It's not the end of the world. You can still work with an air pocket. But if I don't have to, if I'm not far into my project, I'm not going to. So I'm going to go ahead, and I don't necessarily care about the thickness of my slabs, but I do think around that 4.5 millimeters, which is probably close to about 1/4 of an inch, I think would be a good thickness for us to work with. Obviously, the thicker your clay, the longer it's going to take to dry. So, and then the thinner your clay, the more likely it is to crack, honestly. So you want to do something kind of a sweet spot in between those two, where it doesn't take forever to dry, but it's not going to be so brittle. All right, another thing I want to talk to you about while we're going is something called slip. So I see somebody asking, if polymer clay is hard as a rock, can you sprinkle very little water and put it in a Ziploc bag? Yes, that is absolutely one technique to try with that. There's also some liquid Sculpey that you can try adding some of the liquid clay to the clay, and that can help you condition that clay back to life. So when I put this away, and when I put it away for real and might not touch it for the next couple of days, you can spray it down with a little mist of water before you seal it into saran wrap or something like that, or put it into the Ziploc bag like I did, just to keep a little bit of water into the container itself so that it doesn't completely dry up. If your clay does dry up, you can bring it back to life. So I'm going to talk a little bit about slip. And what slip is, if you've ever done any kind of pottery, or if you've ever even kind of watched people do pottery before, slip is kind of a combination of the clay that we're using and some water. And it makes like a little dirty puddle. There we go. So, and then this is going to be used for me. I think I'm okay. My computer is doing something weird again, and I just don't want it to go out. So, this slip is really nice for making smooth edges, because with air dry clay, you're going to get a lot of kind of rough, sandy feeling edges. So you can kind of smooth those down with this little bit of slip. So just so that you know how to make your own slip, what you can do is take a bit of your clay. So just rip off a little piece of your clay and break it into even smaller pieces. And I'm just peeling these little pieces and putting them into a paper cup. And then I'm going to add a little bit of water to this and kind of let the clay soak in the water so that that water has a little bit of the clay material in it. So I have a little bit of water. And I'm going to add that little bit of water into this. And then I'll just kind of stir these in and kind of let the slip do its job, where it's going to kind of release some of itself into that water. So it's making this clay super, super water soaked. So it's not going to necessarily be good for us to use, but it's going to make the water have enough of the clay in it to help us kind of connect some pieces if we want to connect some pieces together. So Sculpey Souffle clay is a polymer clay. So that's one that can go into the oven. I feel like I have a good thickness on this. And I even am going to pull it up to make sure that I'm still okay with what's going on. Yes, so we do use a lot of slip in different kinds of pottery classes for sure. And this is going to be helpful for us today too. So at this point, you have lots of options. If you were able to get any cookie cutters are awesome, great, you got a shape, you're done. If you don't have cookie cutters, but you were able to get the tool set that I had suggested, you can kind of just look around your house and find some items. So for example, maybe you have a roll of tape like this, and you can take one of your cutting tools and you can just trace around it with the cutting tool to cut that shape, just like you would a cookie cutter. And then what's nice about a roll of tape is that if you're trying to make a trinket dish that has some, what do you call it? Curve, that has some curve to it so that you can actually put some things into it. Then what's nice is once you have that shape, you can kind of mold that shape and let the center kind of drop down naturally with gravity so that it's going to give you a little bit of dip in your dish. There are other ways to do it. You can pinch the sides too to make the side of your dish. So that's kind of up to you. So if you have a cookie cutter, if you have a shape to cut out, why don't you go ahead and do that? With my cookie cutter, I'm going to give it a little bit of a twist just to kind of make sure that I can kind of pull up the rest of the clay. And then, like I said, this clay won't dry out that fast because it does take 24 hours. But while I'm working on this, I am going to just wrap it up in some plastic wrap so that I don't lose all that conditioning I've already done to it. So I'm just getting some plastic wrap that I'm going to kind of place around that just to get it from hardening up too much while I'm working on this other piece. Here we go, plastic wrap. Perfect. Ooh, someone in the chat was suggesting a doily. Yes, yes, yes. So you can absolutely use a clay doily, or sorry, a clay doily would be really funny. You could use a doily or anything to make impressions over this with a rolling pin. Absolutely. I love that idea. So you'll notice that with my cookie cutter, I still kind of have this raw edge. So you can wait and you can let it dry for 24 hours and then you can use a little bit of sandpaper and sand it down. Or you can use some of the slip that we've been creating. So I'm going to take this slip and I'm going to run this slip across these edges and see how that's making a nice, smooth, softer finish. And what's nice is that this isn't just water. This is water that has some of that clay property in it. So I'm not messing up my clay by adding too much water. I'm using just a small amount on the sides, and that small amount of water still has clay in it too, which is going to help me keep a much smoother edge to that. So there's a question in the chat that asks about making a tray that's food proof. So that's a great question. It's definitely about how you seal your clay. So I wouldn't put food on air dry clay as is, but check different sealants. So for example, Mod Podge has a dishwasher safe. Mod Podge, which means they probably have a food safe Mod Podge too, so that you could put that as a clear finish. And then that clear finish should be safety wise okay for food as well. So there's different sealants, and just check on the directions or the labels of those sealants to see if it truly is food safe. All right, I'm going to take some letters and I'm going to do some imprint with some letters. So let's see. I'm going to do an M. I think I'm going to spell Meg. Why not? So you can kind of lay them out. I haven't pressed anything down yet, so I'm just kind of laying them out right now and seeing what I like. If you want to do it in a curve, if you want to do it in a straight line. I also like the look of lowercase letters. The stamp set in particular, I think is really cute. Just makes a different style and I like it. Very homemade, very like kitcheny farmhouse kind of chic. And I like that a lot too. Can you use acrylic paint on air dry clay once it has dried? Yes, and that is what I would actually recommend. So now I'm pushing these letters in. And if you push them in pretty far, you're going to get those little boxes around the letter too. But honestly, I don't mind that look either. So I am pushing them with quite a bit of pressure. And then when I remove these, like I said, you can see that little rectangle around it. If I pushed lighter, I could avoid getting that rectangle, but I do kind of like that rectangle too, so I'm not mad at it. And then you can decide, is this going to be a trinket dish? Is this going to be an ornament? Is this going to be a gift topper? What is this going to be? If it's something that requires a hole in it at this point, so if you want to put a ribbon through and hang it somewhere, at this point you want to go ahead and make that hole because you need the hole to be there before it dries. You don't want to risk trying to add the hole later because it could potentially crack your whole project. I did also suggest in the shopping list for today to use a clay tray. So if you cut out a very large circle, this clay tray is cool because you can cut out this circle and then you can put the circle into the tray and give it a little bit of that kind of gravity feel to let it mold. Because I cut this out using the tape, what I also like about this tape is that there's a center in here too. So I can gently place this onto my tape, and it right now is kind of giving me a little bit of a natural curve to it. That's just going to give me a little bit of space to throw a couple of rings or a piece of jewelry or something like that that I like next to my bedside table. And then this is going to have just a tiny bit of a curve because the gravity is definitely pulling this clay through that center. And I would literally leave this to dry for 24 hours and then have my tray and decide if I want to go back and add some color. Another good idea with things like this that are texturized is you could use some gold leaf. So I could put some gold leaf into the MEG letters and then kind of brush off the rest of that and have those shine in a little bit of a gold, which I think is very cool. You could also go back and use some acrylic paint or use some of that gold paint around the edges too to give you that really sophisticated look that I think would be cool. It will take 24 hours to dry. And one tip for letting things dry with air dry clay is that if you can, and if you remember, you can go ahead and flip them over as they're drying because the exposure that the air has to the clay is what's grabbing any of that moisture out and drying it up. So when you have it on a piece of even parchment paper like this, the moisture is being put into the parchment paper, but it's kind of sitting there. And so it might go back in. So if you flip it over, then this side has a chance to get exposed to the air and dry also. Or you can put out a new piece of parchment paper as well if you start to have too much moisture there. So you can keep flipping your projects as you go, and just make sure that they're on a level surface so that they remain flat if you intend for them to be flat. So this is our first project, this cute little trinket tray, and I like this one a lot. And then we're going to take some more of this clay and roll it out and see what else we can do with it. So at this point, my fingers are starting to get pretty clay-like. So if you have questions and if I happen to miss them, Felicia, go ahead and ask them out loud for me because I might not be able to move my computer with these fingers. I don't think they'd like that. So I'm going to kind of I am gonna take, I have a stack of parchment papers just because I like to do that. So I'm gonna remove that top layer and use another piece underneath, but you can keep using that same paper if you want to. And I'm going to do this time some of these impressions using some faux floral. I really like these particular kind of like fern florals as opposed to something rounder like petals and stuff on a flower, because these are actually going to be able to go pretty close to flat. And so you will be able to see their shapes. Whereas if you take something like a flower, the petals are so soft that you might not actually be able to get an outline of them. But yes, doilies and things. I also available in, there's two different places where some of this clay lives at Michael's. There's some in the art supply section right next to like the craft paint and all the different paints. There's this air dry clay. There's also some more clay tools and things like that near jewelry because people use clay so often for jewelry. A silicone mat will work instead of this parchment paper, and you can also get different trays to play with clay on that are easy cleanup trays for clay as well. So this is just kind of me on a budget with this parchment paper, something I already have. So here's this, I'm working this out and I'm gonna roll out a new piece. And this time I'm gonna play with some different textures. So near where the jewelry clay is, you'll find lots of different cutters, little tiny, let me see if I can grab them. These are little tiny cutters that can make cute little pieces of polymer clay jewelry, but you can also use them with air dry clay and put a little hole in them. So you can find these cute little cutters. You can also find these different textured mats and textured molds. You can also find these textured molds where the baking supplies are. So picture putting some fondant on this and getting a really cool kind of cheetah print or some kind of wood print or some kind of geometric design. You can do the same thing with your clay. If you press your clay into any of these silicone mats, and I pull that up, you can have a really awesome texture. Look at how cool that is. I love that. And then once you have that texture, you can then also use one of your cookie cutters, and I can make this heart that, oh my gosh, looks like a cardigan. I love this. Look how we just accidentally stumbled upon this great little finding here. Oh, I love this. It looks like a little knitted heart. So cute. And what a cute little gift or cute little ornament you can make out of this. So these silicone mats are in the baking section. Also in the baking section, you can imagine are lots of different cookie cutters. So this one that I showed you earlier, this baby onesie cookie cutter, is a big bag of sweet sugar bell. I think it's sweet sugar bell fairy cookie cutters. It's a very large collection of cookie cutters, so you can probably find individual cookie cutters that you like too, that you don't have to buy these large packs. But I love this onesie. I think it's so stinking cute. Make sure if you're using these for clay rather than for food, I usually put like masking tape or maybe a little nail polish or something to remind me this is what I use for crafting as opposed to what I use for food, so that I don't mix the two of those up. So one of the questions in the chat also is, what's the difference between air dry modeling and air dry porcelain clay? And it sounds like the difference between those two have to do with their finish. So I would imagine that a porcelain clay would have more of a smooth finish, whereas the air dry clay I'm using with has a rougher kind of finish to it. So both are air dry, so you don't need to use a kiln, but I love this. I'm not going anywhere with this one. I'm not rolling this one back up. I'm keeping it. But yeah, porcelain clay and air dry clay would both of those being air dry would dry in the same way in about 24 hours. So I'm using one of these clay tools to create two holes. And then as this dries, I would then attach ribbon to those two holes. I sometimes like two holes better than just one, because on something like this, I want them to see this side. I don't necessarily want them to see this side. So if you have one, it tends to spin, but if you have two, you can really kind of control which direction it's looking. I love this. This is my new favorite one. And then I'm putting this on parchment paper when I'm leaving it to dry. So as I keep moving things away from here, I'm putting them on parchment paper, but this one tray that I began with is staying on this roll so that it can kind of give that space underneath a chance to kind of mold that direction. A jar is another great household item that can do the same thing as that roll of tape. You can use the jar lid or you can use the jar itself as a cookie cutter. And then you can use the jar lid or you can use the jar itself in order to kind of let something kind of mold to give you a little bit of a curved surface. You can also use some different bowls. So if you have a very large slab, you can lay that slab over top of this and it can grab the same form as this particular bowl. And then you can have something even larger. I also sometimes like to take things I already have, like a coaster. And so once I lay out a slab, I might lay my coaster down and cut around it with one of these plastic tools. And then I might add a texture to that coaster. And as it dries, then I have a coaster that might match another set that might be that same size. So yes, you can take any other dishes that you have and kind of mold them along it. Um, it shouldn't stick to it, but if you want to be super careful just in case, obviously something like this, I don't care if it sticks to it or not, but if you have an actual bowl that you don't want clay to get on, if it's a ceramic bowl or a glass bowl, you can always put your little bit of parchment paper down over top of it and then layer it on. Just make sure your parchment paper is nice and flat to whatever surface it is so that you don't get accidental kind of creases in the inside of whatever bowl you're flipping over. So these are all great ideas. I see another thing in the chat that says several holes in a circle shape after rolling a design. Oh, what a cool idea. Okay. So I think that what you're talking about is, let's see, let's go for it. Ooh. So there's some good information. Sounds like Laura knows some more stuff about porcelain clay. Porridge clay, she says, is made with finer particles. So ceramic dolls are made with porcelain because it dries finer. And you can make some different things with that. Thank you for sharing that. It's nice to kind of have a community where we can give each other some information. So we were talking about jars for flowers. So let's go for it. I'm going to roll out another piece. I like this idea. I've seen it kind of with little kids too, where people will take a piece of cardboard and poke a bunch of holes in it and draw maybe like a little mason jar or something on it. And then the kids go and find little wildflowers and things and put them through the hole to kind of have a cute little scene in a little fake mason jar. So what I'm picturing this to be, and Susan, you can tell me if you have a different idea, is that if this were like a vase rather than just a jar, but we'll use it as the jar, we can cut a circle, and we can cut a circle that's maybe a little bit bigger than the jar size. So I'm going to use one of my tools. I'm going to use this tool to kind of cut around. And remember that when you're cutting, it's not going to give you a very smooth edge. So you do want to use some of that slip to kind of smooth down whatever you're working with. But I'm purposely cutting my circle a little bit bigger than the jar lid itself. I'm going to peel this around and I'm going to play with the shape until it's something that I like. There we go. I'm going to dip my finger into some of this slip. And I'm just going to keep smoothing the edges. Ooh, candy flower frogs. Interesting. So we've added to the chat that vases used to come with these little things where you can have holes in them and stick the flowers through. I kind of feel like giving it this little bit of lip is going to keep it on my jar. So my clay is a little larger than the jar, but you can imagine when I flip this over, it's going to have a little bit of that ridge in order to kind of keep it on the jar. And then if I poke some holes through this, various size holes using some of my different tools, we can have some places to stick flowers through. Someone was asking at the beginning too about making a little palette. This would be an awesome place to keep paintbrushes too. So imagine if you have some water in the bottom of this jar and then you can stick your paintbrushes through these different holes. That would be a really cool thing to do too with something that you made. So I am excited to keep working on some of these even after our class. And I'll try and post some of my different things to my personal Instagram, which is 4M Coleman. But we do have Learn with Michael's Instagram. So if any of you have anything you have made or want to share, I would love to see that if you tag us or use our hashtags. Oh, that's cool. And then you can imagine, I'm going to go back on this side and I'm going to make those holes a little better. But you can imagine putting some flowers through or putting some paintbrushes through or pencils or different things like that. This is a fun idea that we just came up with. So good work, everybody. Just going to smooth these out a little bit. I might even add some slip to them. Maybe I'll put my tool into the slip and kind of give it a good go around. Just smooth that out. So my social media is 4M Coleman. And we also have a Michael's social media, which is Learn with Michael's. And that's kind of an off branch of our Michael's Stores Instagram, where we specifically focus on classes and all the different online classes that are available, not just the ones that I teach, but all the ones that lots of different teachers teach. So you can find out about all of those. I like this. I think this is fun. And then when it dries, I can put it on top of my jar. I'm not going to put it on top of my jar to dry because I don't want it to have any kind of curve to it. I want it to be nice and flat. So I'm just going to take a little time and make this into a size that I like. And how fun is it to just put your hands in this clay and just really get them dirty and really just have fun? It reminds me of being little and like kind of making mud pies outside and just getting your hands dirty and having some fun. So I love that. This is still my favorite. That was even just by accident. So I have some more clay and there's always more things you can do. So we've talked about different textures. We've talked about different cookie cutters. We haven't done the impression with the leaves yet, so I'll show that for you next. And you can also do some coils and some different things with the clay. So all of these are some fun ideas. And I'm just rolling this out. And even as I roll it out, you'll notice that I keep flipping it. And that's just to make sure that both sides are smooth and also just to make sure that I'm spreading it in different directions and making sure that it's not sticking to my parchment paper and that I can still peel it off pretty easily. So all of those things are important to me. And then going along the lines of that idea I was showing you before, I really like this idea of a potential family tree kind of situation that hangs and kind of sways, or you could attach like a piece of wood at the top that says the family name and then have all the different people, or you could do this for like birthdays. So January, and here are all the people who have birthdays in January and February. You can do all sorts of things with these cool pieces. And I can go back and paint these and add some extra detail. So I'm going to do something similar to that, but I'm going to use some of these stacking rectangles. So this is a box of cookie cutters from Celebrate It in the baking aisle, but I'm not using them for baking. And what I like about these stacking ones is that you get lots of sizes of the same shape so that you can do something like a larger parent block and then smaller children blocks and different things like that too. So I think that's always a good idea. I'm checking kind of to see how thick this is and how large. I don't know if that's gonna fit. It's gonna be pretty close. Grab this one. So I'm gonna do an imprint on this one using some of that faux floral I showed you. And imagine that you can use any kind of texture that you find. So if you find something like a doily, if you find something that you use for something else that has a texture on it, you can use those textures on your clay, or you can make impressions like we're about to do with something three-dimensional. So I'm taking this out of the cookie cutter, has a nice shape to it. I do have some furry edges, so I am gonna smooth those down with a little bit of my slip. And remember, we made that slip just by putting some pieces of clay into some water and letting that clay sit in that water and kind of give that water some of the same properties of the clay. And it just helps in smoothing that down. And then if I'm doing an impression, I'm gonna take this faux floral and I'm just gonna pop one of these off. So you can cut it with a wire cutter, or a lot of these are plastic and they just pop off. And then I'm going to lay this piece down, and I am going to use my fingers once and push each of those petals or those leaves kind of in. You can, of course, also go back with your rolling pin, especially if you're using something like a piece of doily. Your rolling pin will be very good at doing this for you and still keeping the slab pretty even. But I'm making sure that I push down all the leaves so that it gives it some of that outline feel. And you can push them down as deeply as you'd like. It's not going to do any damage to it. And then I'm going to peel this up carefully. And I have that really nice impression. So if the impression leaves with some jaggedy edges, you can, of course, put some of that slip down in there too to kind of smooth some of those edges out. And this is turning out really beautiful. There's space on here still, so you could make this into a coaster, you could make this into an ornament, you could make this into a tray. You could pinch up some sides, you could add some sides around it to make it some depth, and that can be the bottom of your tray. Or you can do like what I was talking about, if this is going to be some kind of family tree emblems or monograms, you can always use your stamps again. So you have some initials, maybe like a mother and a father initial. Then these could be the parent leaves of the family tree or the roots or the branches. And then you can keep adding some different things from there. So if I add some holes, then I can attach maybe one of the smaller pieces. So you can imagine you can have grandchildren, you can have children, and you can do different pieces in order to kind of build a hanging family tree, which I think is kind of a nice, fun idea. I do have a little bit more, so maybe I'll make one more size that goes with this one. And I'm just continuing to work with the same slab. I only cut off or pulled off about a third of my 2.2 pounds of clay. So you can imagine that package of clay is going to last you for quite a bit. You're going to be able to have lots of fun with that same package of clay before you need to buy your next one. So here I'm using a smaller cookie cutter of that same shape. And I'm peeling around it, make sure that it's cut through. And I am going to smooth down those edges because you can probably tell that they're pretty rough.
You know, Megan, more I look at these, I can see them being coasters.
Yes, I love a good coaster for sure. Especially I like these like rectangle ones. These are nice for sure. And just if you already have a favorite coaster, cut out around that coaster, and then you're going to have another one that can match into that set. So you can decide if you're going to add any floral or any impressions to this one, or if you're just going to go with a letter. That can kind of be up to you. What do I want to do? I think I am going to add a letter. And I'm going to add maybe, I think I can do it on the side like this. Little Trinity. So I'm pressing these down. I don't think I need to roll this one because it's pretty delicate. And I think I'm going to be able to get the impression pretty well with just pressing with my fingers. So I do suggest that after these dry, that you use an acrylic paint or a craft paint to go over top of these. All of those are good ideas. If you're going to use it for something like a coaster, you'll probably want to put a seal of Mod Podge or some kind of lacquer just to make sure that it's a little bit waterproof. And then
And
here's,
Megan, there was a question that you did miss,
okay.
asking could you add pigment powder to the clay?
That is a great question that I honestly don't know the answer to. Um, Sometimes different chemicals change the composition and it wouldn't dry the way it's supposed to. So that would be a fun thing to experiment with, but I honestly don't know if I know the answer to that question. I love this. These also remind me of those little Scrabble tiles. Remember when it was cute to make all your little family names with Scrabble tiles and things like that too? So we are starting to get towards the end of our time together, but I just want to kind of go over some of the things that we've done together. So we started with a nice, I cut around either the cookie cutter, or if you don't have a cookie cutter, you can cut around a roll of tape to get a nice circle. Then we use some of these stamps to do some impressions. And then I'm going to let this dry on this roll of tape because the gravity is kind of pulling towards the center and giving me a little bit of a trinket tray kind of situation. Ooh, watercolors and alcohol inks. I feel like watercolors I'd be leery of unless you've already sealed it. Well, and then watercolors I don't think would do very well on it. I'm worried about watercolors messing it up and kind of cracking it by reactivating the clay. So I'm worried about watercolors. I know acrylic is fine. Alcohol inks, I'm a little worried might do something to the dryness also with that alcohol in it. So let me know if you do some experimentation. Let me know if it works for you, but I'm kind of thinking off the top of my head that that wouldn't be as easy to use. So
Also,
another question,
you
maybe
see
this is what you're going to ask Felicia
probably
about.
about the dark place. That's all I was trying to make sure you see
Yes,
that one.
yes,
Oh,
good question. So it says, do I need to dry my pieces in a dark place? No, but what does matter, like I was talking about before, is consistency. So don't put it in a super humid place because obviously it's trying to get water out in order for it to dry. So you don't want to put it in a place that has moisture in the air because it's going to kind of counterbalance that. It doesn't need to be dark, but it does need to be consistent. So leave it in the same place. If you have a room that no one's going to go into and mess with this and it can sit there for 24 hours, leave it. I probably wouldn't let them dry outside or in a garage just because I can't control the temperatures in a garage or outside. So keep it in a room. It doesn't need to be dark, but it should be somewhere that has a pretty similar temperature throughout the 24 hours because that change in temperature is what's going to cause some of that cracking.
okay.
So
Do you
sure,
mind if
go
I
for it.
add, just to go back to one of your other questions about adding the pigment colors?
Yep.
Even if you don't mix it into the actual clay itself, I would also say try taking like the mica powder
Yes.
and maybe brushing it on
Yes.
the clay, better more so than actually putting it throughout the clay.
Yes.
And then I just to add to one of those questions, would you say suggest putting maybe like a plastic Tupperware over it to keep any particles from landing on it?
Good question. I feel like putting a plastic covering over top of it um, would keep it
Well,
from drying.
mm-hmm.
But if you are worried about particles, then maybe it could be something that has enough so that air can still go through. So picture like a tray that has handle holes or something like that. So air can still come through, but nothing can land on it. I think that might be a good idea. But I don't think I would seal it off or put them into something to dry because I don't think they're going to dry for you. And then you do want to kind of watch, and you'll see that it changes. It's not going to change color dramatically, but you can tell the difference between a wet clay and a drier clay by the color. See how it's just a little bit darker on this one? Because this one's already been drying for a while before I started the class. So you'll see what's still wet and what's still dry. So you'll need to get the spaces that are still wet exposed to the air in order for them to dry better. So also make sure that your holes stay open. So make sure that you still have space that you can go through with your ribbon or with your jewelry findings or different pieces later, metal pieces to attach these together. But look at what all we've created in just an hour together. How fun is that? So with one little pack of air dry clay and some cutting tools, you are set to make all sorts of things. So thank you so much. Drying towel with a cotton dish towel. I don't know. What about drying it on a cotton dish towel?
You know, my thought on that would be that would not be wise
Yeah, I think
because
it's going to
at your
take it out too fast.
it would take it out too fast, and then on top of it, you possibly would end up with a different pattern
Yeah, like that
underneath.
texture.
It won't be as smooth as you may possibly want it.
Yeah. And then the question about the paint when it's wet or dry, definitely wait until it's dry before you put any kind of paint onto it. That's going to help you a lot. So leave it to dry for 24 hours. Try to be patient with yourself. And they are beautiful the way they are. So if you don't add any paint to it, I really love this simplistic kind of style. I can picture these in a couple of shops downtown. So these already look beautiful. And if you want to add some things, wait till they're dry for 24 hours and then you can add in maybe some gold leaf. You could go back with a paint pen and you can go into those little divots just to highlight those letters, highlight the stamps, things like that. I think that would be really awesome. We have all together created some great ideas during this class. So it was fun that so many of you joined me and were able to kind of give me different suggestions on where to go with these. So I'm looking forward to seeing how these turn out. And I'm going to try and post some more pictures as I go. So let me know. And you can follow us at Learn with Michaels. Tag us, use our hashtag so that I can see what you're creating also. So thank you so much for joining me and Felicia today. We hope to see you again on Thursdays and Fridays. See you soon.